Welcome to Deep Science Sleep. Picture yourself in a peaceful sanctuary, nestled at the edge of an ancient forest. The golden afternoon light filters through the canopy above, creating dancing patterns across soft moss and fallen leaves. In the distance, you hear the gentle murmur of bird songs, soft chirps and melodious whistles that seem to drift on the breeze like a lullaby. The air is warm and still, carrying the faint scent of pine and wildflowers. As you settle into this tranquil space, imagine the birds around you. Some perched quietly on sun-warmed branches, others gliding effortlessly through the air on wings that catch the light. Here, in this serene moment, let's embark on a journey through the remarkable world of birds, exploring their ancient origins, their gentle habits, and the quiet wonders that make them so extraordinary. Allow these soothing facts to wash over you like waves on a distant shore, carrying you deeper into relaxation with each passing moment. The ancient origins of birds. Deep in the corridors of time, more than 150 million years ago, a transformation was unfolding that would forever change the fabric of life on Earth. In the warm, shallow seas of what is now southern Germany, creatures that blurred the line between reptile and bird moved through a world we can barely imagine. These were the early pioneers of flight, and their story is one of the most peaceful revolutions in the history of life. A slow, gentle metamorphosis spanning millions of years, written in the patient language of evolution. The tale begins with Archaeopteryx, whose name means ancient wing in Greek, a fitting tribute to its place at the dawn of avian history. When the first fossilized feather of this remarkable creature was discovered in 1860 or 1861, nestled in the fine limestone deposits near Solnhofen, Germany, it opened a window into a pivotal moment in evolutionary time. This single feather, described with scientific precision by Hermann von Meyer, would be followed by the discovery of more complete specimens, 14 body fossils in total, each one a treasure that would help unravel the mystery of how birds came to be. Archaeopteryx lived during the late Jurassic period, approximately 150.8 to 148.5 million years ago. Imagine this creature, roughly the size of a modern raven, with broad wings rounded at the ends and a long tail extending behind its body. It could reach up to 50 centimeters in body length, with a wingspan stretching to 70 centimeters, and it weighed somewhere between 500 and 1,000 grams. Small enough to perch on a branch, light enough to take to the air, it represented a bridge between two worlds. What made Archaeopteryx so remarkable was not merely its existence, but the story its body told. Here was a creature that possessed both the characteristics of the terrible lizards, the dinosaurs that dominated its world, and the features we associate with modern birds. It had well-developed teeth in its jaws, a long bony tail like its theropod cousins, and 3 fingers that bore claws and moved independently, unlike the fused fingers of birds we know today. Yet adorning its body were feathers, advanced flight feathers with the same structure and arrangement found in the wings of birds that soar through our skies millions of years later. The feathers themselves tell a gentle story of function and beauty intertwined. While some were pennaceous, firm and symmetrical, forming the contour feathers along Archaeopteryx's back, others appeared more like proto-down, decomposed and fluffy, providing insulation and warmth. Studies of the melanosomes, the tiny granules within the feathers that produce pigment, revealed that these ancient feathers were black, and their microstructure provided increased structural support to the wings, strengthening them for the demands of flight in much the same way that modern bird feathers are reinforced. But Archaeopteryx did not fly as modern birds do. Its bones, while strong, were designed to handle low torsional forces, the kind that allow for bursts of powered flight over short distances, perhaps to escape a predator or leap from tree to tree, rather than the sustained soaring or rapid flapping that carries eagles across mountains or allows hummingbirds to hover with such precision. Its skeletal structures related to flight were incompletely developed, suggesting that this ancient bird lived a life balanced between the ground and the air, between the old world of dinosaurs and the new realm of the sky. The limestone formations where Archaeopteryx fossils have been found tell their own tranquil tale. These stones formed from lime-rich muds that slowly accumulated in shallow tropical marine environments, likely coral lagoons where warm waters lapped gently at scattered islands. The area that is now Bavaria, southern Germany, lay much closer to the equator during the Jurassic, at a latitude similar to modern-day Florida, enjoying a warm though likely dry climate. In this world of ancient seas and subtropical islands, Archaeopteryx made its home, and when individual birds died, some drifted on their backs through the water before coming to rest in anoxic sediment. Areas devoid of oxygen where their bodies could be preserved in remarkable detail, waiting in silent patience for the day when human eyes would discover them and marvel at their existence. The discovery of Archaeopteryx came at a pivotal moment in human understanding. Only 2 years had passed since Charles Darwin published his treatise on the origin of species by means of natural selection in 1859. The idea that species could evolve from one form to another was new, radical, and fiercely debated. When Thomas Henry Huxley, Darwin's friend and champion, examined one of the early Archaeopteryx specimens in London, he made a connection that would resonate through the ages. He saw the link between this feathered creature and reptiles, including small bipedal dinosaurs like Compsognathus. For many, Archaeopteryx seemed to confirm Darwin's theories, becoming a key piece of evidence for the origin of birds, for the transitional fossils debate, and for the reality of evolution itself. Yet the story did not end with Archaeopteryx. For nearly a century after its discovery, this ancient bird remained largely alone in the fossil record, a singular point of light illuminating the path between dinosaurs and birds. It wasn't until the late 20th and early 21st centuries that the silence of those missing years began to fill with new voices. Discoveries in China, South America, and other regions revealed a wealth of small, feathered dinosaurs that painted a more complex picture of bird evolution. Creatures like Xiaotingia zengi from the Liaoning deposits in China prompted some paleontologists to reconsider Archaeopteryx's place in the evolutionary tree. Perhaps it belonged not at the base of all birds, but somewhere along a branch that included other bird-like dinosaurs. In February of 2025, another piece of the puzzle fell into place when researchers described Baminornis, discovered in China. This second genus of Jurassic birds instantly expanded our understanding of the earliest birds, revealing that Archaeopteryx had not been alone in its time. Baminornis was unlike Archaeopteryx in many ways, hinting at a complex evolutionary story playing out during those ancient days, multiple lineages of bird-like creatures experimenting with flight, with feathers, with the vast possibilities of life in the air. What we now understand is that birds are not merely related to dinosaurs, they are dinosaurs. Specifically, they evolved from small carnivorous members of the theropod family, the same group that includes such fearsome names as Tyrannosaurus rex and Allosaurus, though birds descended from much smaller species, more akin to Velociraptor in size and build. This knowledge transforms our view of the pigeons that roost in city squares and the tiny hummingbirds that visit our gardens. They are the living descendants of creatures that walked the earth in the Age of Giants, the inheritors of a lineage that stretches back through unimaginable depths of time. As the Mesozoic era gave way to the Cretaceous period 143.1 million to 66 million years ago, birds truly came into their own. Fossil sites like Las Hoyas in eastern Spain and the remarkable deposits of northeast China, part of the Jehol biota ecosystem that existed approximately 135 million to 120 million years ago, have yielded treasure troves of bird fossils. Many of these ancient birds belong to groups that would eventually vanish, the Enantiornithines and others that did not survive the asteroid-related catastrophe at the end of the Cretaceous. But some lineages persisted, threading through that extinction event like a needle through cloth, emerging into the new world of the Cenozoic era to diversify into the more than 10,000 species of birds we know today. The evolution of birds is a story told in the softest whispers, incremental changes accumulating over millions of years, each small modification tested by the demands of survival, each successful adaptation passed down through countless generations. From simple hair-like structures that provided insulation to complex pennaceous feathers that enabled flight, from ground-dwelling theropods to creatures that could soar above mountains and migrate across oceans, the journey from dinosaur to bird unfolds like a slow-motion transformation, peaceful in its patience, magnificent in its outcome. When we watch a bird in flight today, we are witnessing the culmination of this ancient journey. The hollow bones that reduce weight while maintaining strength, the keeled sternum that anchors powerful flight muscles, the intricate arrangement of feathers that create lift and control, all of these features have been refined across a span of time that dwarfs human history. Birds carry within them the echoes of ancient seas, the memory of volcanic islands, the legacy of creatures that walked on clawed feet through forests that have long since turned to stone. And perhaps what is most peaceful about this story is its reminder of continuity. The world changes, species rise and fall, continents drift and climates transform, yet the thread of life persists. The descendants of Archaeopteryx fill our world with song and color, with the gentle rustle of wings and the quiet beauty of a feather catching the light. They connect us to a past almost too vast to comprehend, and in their presence, we can feel the weight and wonder of deep time, the slow unfolding of evolution, the patient artistry of nature working across millions of years to create creatures of such grace and beauty that we pause in our busy lives simply to watch them fly. The symphony of bird songs. As dawn begins to paint the horizon with gentle hues of pink and gold, something magical happens in the natural world. Before the sun has fully risen, before the day's heat settles over the land, a symphony begins. It starts with a single voice, perhaps a blackbird's rich, fluty song, and then another joins in, and another, until the air itself seems to vibrate with melody. This is the dawn chorus, one of nature's most beautiful performances, and it invites us into the remarkable world of bird song. At the heart of every bird song lies a marvel of biological engineering called the syrinx. Unlike humans, who produce sound using the larynx located in our throats, Birds create their songs with this specialized organ positioned much deeper in their bodies, right where the trachea splits into the two bronchi that lead to the lungs. The name syrinx comes from the Greek word for double flute, and this name captures its essence perfectly, for the syrinx is indeed a double instrument, with two sides capable of producing sound independently. Imagine the syrinx as a musical instrument nestled in the bird's chest, with flexible muscles, delicate membranes called labia, and an adjustable windpipe all working in harmony. When a bird wants to sing, it pushes air from its lungs through the syrinx. As the air passes over the membranes, they vibrate, much like a drum skin vibrates when struck, and sound is born. But what makes the syrinx truly extraordinary is its dual nature. Each side of this organ can produce a different note simultaneously, allowing birds to create complex melodies that would be impossible for us to replicate with our single-tone voice boxes. This ability to sing two notes at once opens up a world of possibility. Cardinals, for instance, use the left side of their syrinx to produce the lower portion of their sweeping whistle notes, then seamlessly switch to the right side for the higher portions, all within a single breath with no perceptible break to human ears. Canaries take a different approach, breathing through one side while singing with the other, a feat of coordination that seems almost magical. Thrushes create their characteristic rich, warbling songs by essentially singing duets with themselves, producing rising notes on one side while descending notes emerge from the other. Some birds can produce as many as 30 separate notes per second, each one precisely controlled, each one a small miracle of biological precision. The muscles surrounding the syrinx alter the tension of the membranes, much like tightening or loosening a drum skin changes its pitch. This gives birds an extraordinary range of control over their vocalizations, from the softest whisper to the loudest call. And because the syrinx sits close to the lungs, birds can use a larger proportion of their oxygen to generate sound than we can, making their singing more efficient and allowing them to sustain their songs for longer periods. But birds are not simply born knowing how to sing. Like human children learning to speak, young songbirds must learn their species' songs from their parents and other adults. They are born with an innate template, a basic blueprint that tells them the general shape their song should take. But to master the full complexity of their species' vocal repertoire, they must listen carefully to the adults around them and practice, practice, practice. Young males, in particular, spend considerable time perfecting their songs, for when they mature, the quality of their singing may determine their success in attracting a mate and defending a territory. This learning process creates something remarkable: regional dialects. Just as human languages vary from place to place, bird songs develop distinct local characteristics. A song sparrow in California sings a slightly different tune than a song sparrow in Maine, even though both belong to the same species. These dialects are passed down through generations, creating cultural traditions that can persist for decades or even longer. In some species, young birds may incorporate elements from multiple tutors, creating their own unique variations while staying true to the basic template of their species' song. The reasons birds sing are as varied as the songs themselves. At the most fundamental level, song serves two primary purposes: to attract mates and to defend territory. For a male bird in spring, his song is his declaration to the world: I am here, I am healthy, I am worthy of attention. Female birds listen carefully to male songs, using them to evaluate potential partners. Research has shown that females pay attention to tiny variations in amplitude and frequency that might be undetectable to human ears. Reading in these subtle differences information about the male's health, his age, his genetic quality. Song complexity matters immensely. Male mockingbirds with repertoires exceeding 150 different song types secure mates 3 weeks earlier than males with smaller vocabularies. The ability to sing many different songs demonstrates mental capacity, good physical condition, and perhaps most importantly, experience. The bird has lived long enough to learn extensively, suggesting he possesses genes worth passing on to the next generation. Even among cardinals, whose songs might seem fairly simple to us, a series of whistled syllables, usually comprising 1 to 3 syllable types, the quality of the performance matters deeply to prospective mates. Territory defense is equally important. When a male bird sings from his perch, he is drawing an invisible boundary around his space, warning other males to keep their distance. The most intense singing often occurs early in the breeding season, when territories are being established and competition is fiercest. A cardinal might use distinctive calls to mark territories spanning 2 to 10 acres, depending on the quality of the habitat and the availability of food. Wrens take this strategy even further, singing from multiple perches throughout their territory to create the illusion of larger numbers, a sonic deception designed to discourage competitors. And then there is the dawn chorus, that remarkable phenomenon that occurs in the soft light of early morning. About 30 to 60 minutes before sunrise, birds begin to vocalize, and for the next 2 hours, the singing reaches a crescendo that makes this the most intense daily singing period for most species. But why dawn? The answer lies partly in the physics of sound and partly in the rhythms of avian life. During the early morning hours, the air is cool and still, and these conditions allow sound to travel much farther than it would during the warmer, windier hours of midday, perhaps 20 times farther. Temperature inversions during dawn create sound channels in the atmosphere that enhance vocal transmission across territories. For a bird trying to broadcast his presence across as wide an area as possible, dawn offers ideal conditions. Additionally, the light levels at dawn are high enough for birds to see potential threats, but food is often not yet readily available. For insectivorous species, insects don't become active until the air warms up later in the day. With little else productive to do at this hour, singing becomes the optimal use of time and energy. Different species begin singing at slightly different times during the dawn chorus, creating a predictable succession of voices. The timing relates partly to the height of their perches. Birds positioned higher can perceive the growing dawnlight sooner, and partly to evolutionary adaptations that help reduce vocal interference between species. Robins typically initiate their territorial songs as early as 4 in the morning during spring months, their clear, cheerful voices the first notes in the symphony. Blackbirds often follow about 45 minutes before sunrise, then thrushes, wrens, and finches join in succession, each species claiming its own temporal niche in the soundscape. Song sparrows start about 15 minutes after blackbirds, creating distinct temporal separation that prevents their frequencies from overlapping and interfering with one another. The dawn chorus represents more than just individual birds singing. It demonstrates stamina and health status. A male bird that can sing vigorously for 45 to 90 minutes in the pre-dawn hours, when he hasn't eaten since the previous evening, is advertising his physical condition. He's essentially saying, "Look how strong I am. I can afford to expend this energy even when food is scarce." Research shows that males singing during the dawn chorus attract mates 40% more successfully than those who sing primarily at other times. For females evaluating potential partners during the breeding season, a male's dawn performance provides reliable information about his overall quality. There is also something else happening in the dawn chorus, something more subtle and perhaps more peaceful. Birdsong in general is understood to relate to identification, birds announcing their species' identity, maintaining contact with family members or flock mates, coordinating movements. But some scientists suggest that birds may also sing for the simple reason that it feels good. The more unwelcome question, as one researcher delicately phrased it, may be whether birds sing for the sheer joy of being alive. While we cannot know the subjective experience of a bird, there is something in the exuberance of the dawn chorus, in the way songs cascade and overlap, in the evident enthusiasm with which some birds sing, that hints at joy, at an expression of vitality that transcends mere biological function. It's also worth noting that our understanding of birdsong is evolving. For centuries, the prevailing belief was that only male birds sing, with females relegated to simpler calls. Contemporary research has shattered this assumption. Studies show that in 64% of songbird species examined, females also sing. Their songs are usually quieter and less frequent, making them easier to overlook, but they serve similar purposes: territory defense, mate communication, even mate attraction in species where both parents defend a shared territory. This revelation highlights how biases in research, male ornithologists being less likely to study female birdsong than their female counterparts, can create skewed understandings that persist for generations until someone thinks to question the assumptions. Female northern cardinals, for instance, are just as adept at singing as males. Often this goes unnoticed because we assume it's only the males who sing, but if you watch carefully, you may see and hear a female delivering her clear whistles from a perch. In species like robins, both sexes sing during winter when they hold individual feeding territories, their voices defending resources against all comers regardless of sex. The recognition of widespread female song has led researchers to reconsider the evolutionary origins of birdsong. Perhaps the ability to sing evolved in a common ancestor of all modern songbirds, in both males and females, and the real question is why female birds don't sing in some species today, rather than why they do in others. Beyond the functional aspects, birdsong enriches human life in ways both obvious and subtle. Research has shown that listening to birdsong can reduce stress, improve mood, and increase feelings of happiness and relaxation. There's something about the complex, melodious patterns of birdsong that resonates with something deep in the human psyche. Perhaps it's an evolutionary legacy. For our ancestors, birdsong would have signaled safe, healthy environments, places where water and food could be found. Or perhaps it's simply the intrinsic beauty of the sound, the way melody and rhythm combine to create patterns that please the ear and calm the mind. When you lie in bed before sunrise, if you're lucky enough to live where birds still sing in abundance, you might hear the start of the dawn chorus. First one voice, then another, building slowly like an orchestra tuning up. There's a patience to it, an unhurried quality that speaks to the ancient rhythms of the natural world. Each bird sings in its time, each voice adds to the collective melody, and the result is something greater than the sum of its parts. A symphony that has been performed every morning for millions of years, long before human ears were there to appreciate it, and hopefully continuing long after we are gone. The songs fill the air, traveling through the cool morning on invisible wings of sound. Frequencies overlap and separate. Melodies interweave and respond to one another, creating a sonic landscape of extraordinary complexity. And somewhere in that tapestry of sound, in the whistles and trills and warbles that fill the dawn, there is something deeply peaceful, a reminder that the world goes on turning, that life renews itself with each sunrise, that beauty exists independent of human witness or understanding, simply because that is the nature of the world. The art of flight. Flight is perhaps the most defining characteristic of birds, the ability that sets most of them apart from other creatures and allows them to inhabit a realm that few other animals can access. But flight is not merely a matter of flapping wings and rising into the air. It is an art form, a complex interaction of anatomy, physics, and millions of years of evolutionary refinement. To understand flight is to appreciate one of nature's most elegant solutions to the challenge of movement through three-dimensional space. At the foundation of avian flight lies the feather, a structure so perfectly designed for its purpose that it has remained essentially unchanged for millions of years. Feathers are marvels of natural engineering, light yet strong, flexible yet resilient, capable of creating the precise aerodynamic surfaces needed for flight while also providing insulation, waterproofing, and visual display. A single flight feather is a masterpiece of design, with a central shaft called the rachis from which hundreds of branches called barbs extend. These barbs, in turn, bear smaller branches called barbules, and these barbules link together with tiny hooks to create a smooth, air-resistant surface called a vane. The flight feathers come in two main groups. The primary feathers attach to the bones of the hand, the manus, and form the outer part of the wing. There are typically 9 to 12 primaries per wing in most species, and these feathers are the wing's powerhouse, creating thrust during the downstroke and providing much of the propulsion that moves the bird forward through the air. The primary feathers are the longest and narrowest of the flight feathers, and they can be individually rotated, giving birds fine control over their flight path. During the upstroke, the primaries on the outer part of the wing spread apart, letting air flow through and reducing resistance. On the downstroke, they flatten into a solid surface, pushing down against the air with every beat. The secondary flight feathers attach to the ulna bone in the forearm and form the inner trailing edge of the wing. Unlike the primaries, the secondaries cannot be individually separated. They work as a unified surface. Different species have different numbers of secondaries. Eagles, for instance, may have 12 to 25 of these feathers, which help generate lift by creating the wing's cambered shape. The asymmetrical structure of flight feathers, with the rachis positioned closer to the leading edge, creating a narrow leading edge and a broader trailing edge, is crucial for their aerodynamic function. This shape allows them to cut through the air efficiently while providing maximum surface area for generating lift. But feathers are only part of the story. The wing itself is an airfoil, a shape that has been perfected over geological timescales to create the lift necessary for flight. When viewed in cross-section, The upper surface of a bird's wing is curved while the lower surface is relatively flat. As the bird moves forward, air flowing over the curved upper surface has to travel a slightly longer distance than air flowing beneath the wing. This causes the air above to move faster, creating lower pressure above the wing than below it, and this pressure difference generates lift, the force that holds the bird up against gravity. The shape of a bird's wing is not random. It reflects the bird's lifestyle, its habitat, its method of finding food. High aspect ratio wings are long and narrow, like those of an albatross. The wandering albatross has the most extreme wing proportions of any bird, with a wingspan reaching 11.5 feet while the wing itself remains relatively narrow. These wings are perfect for efficient gliding, generating exceptional lift-to-drag ratios that allow albatrosses to soar over oceanic winds for hours, barely flapping. The wings work like the wings of a sailplane, catching the wind and riding the air currents with minimal energy expenditure. Albatrosses even have locking mechanisms in their wing joints that reduce the strain on muscles during these long soaring flights, allowing them to fly for days or even weeks with very little muscular effort. Elliptical wings, by contrast, are shorter and more rounded, with a relatively even width from body to tip. Many songbirds have elliptical wings, which allow for tight maneuvering in confined spaces. These wings are common in birds that live in forests or dense vegetation, where the ability to navigate quickly around branches and through narrow gaps is more important than efficient long-distance flight. The trade-off is that elliptical wings require more frequent flapping and more energy expenditure per unit of distance traveled. But for a bird darting through a thicket, agility trumps efficiency. Pointed wings are designed for speed. Swallows, terns, and frigate birds have long, pointed wings that, combined with rapid wing beats, provide energetically expensive but very fast flight. These birds can maneuver gracefully and fly for extended periods despite the high energy cost. Their streamlined bodies and aerodynamic wings cutting through the air with minimal resistance. Recent research shows that magnificent frigate birds can fly for days or even weeks without landing, even sleeping while they soar high above tropical oceans. Their narrow wings and light bodies perfectly adapted for this aerial lifestyle. Then there are the broad, slotted wings of soaring raptors and vultures. These wings are designed for a different kind of efficiency, the ability to gain altitude by riding thermal updrafts and to cover large distances with minimal flapping. The slots, gaps between the primary feathers at the wingtips, are crucial to this mode of flight. When air flows over the wing, it tends to curl around the wingtip, creating swirling vortices that generate drag and reduce lift. The slots help control these vortices, with each primary feather acting as a small separate airfoil. This slotted design increases lift during slow flight and reduces induced drag during gliding, allowing large birds like golden eagles and Andean condors to soar for hours, slowly circling on rising columns of warm air. The mechanics of active flight, the flapping flight that most people picture when they think of birds in motion, are more complex than they might first appear. It might look as though birds simply flap their wings up and down, but the reality involves a sophisticated three-dimensional movement. On the downstroke, the wing moves downward and forward, pushing air down and back, which creates both lift and thrust. On the upstroke, the wing moves upward and forward, but the outer feathers spread apart to reduce resistance. The wing doesn't just flap in a vertical plane. It follows an elliptical path through the air, with the wingtip tracing a figure-8 pattern when viewed from the side. The power for this motion comes from the massive pectoral muscles, the flight muscles that make up a significant portion of a bird's body weight, often 15 to 25% in strong flyers. These muscles attach to the keeled sternum, the breastbone that protrudes from the bird's chest like the keel of a ship. This projection provides a large surface area for muscle attachment, allowing birds to generate the tremendous force needed for sustained flapping flight. The larger the keel, generally speaking, the more powerful the flight. Different birds employ different flight styles to suit their needs and conserve energy. Hummingbirds, the smallest of birds, have evolved a unique mode of flight that sets them apart from all others. Their wings rotate at the shoulder in a way that allows them to beat not just up and down, but also backward, generating lift on both the upstroke and the downstroke. This allows hummingbirds to hover in place, their wings beating at an astonishing rate, often 50 to 80 times per second, so fast they become a blur. They can also fly backward, sideways, and perform acrobatic maneuvers with a precision that seems to defy physics. This remarkable ability comes at a cost. Hummingbird hearts beat up to 1,200 times per minute during flight, and they must consume roughly half their body weight in nectar each day to fuel their high-energy lifestyle. Many small songbirds use a distinctive flight pattern called bounding or flap-bounding flight. They alternate between bursts of rapid wing beats and intervals where they fold their wings tightly against their bodies and follow a ballistic trajectory, essentially falling forward through the air. This creates an undulating roller coaster flight path that is easy to recognize once you know to look for it. Why fly this way? Research suggests that the ballistic phase, when the wings are folded, reduces aerodynamic drag, and the overall pattern may be more energy efficient for small birds than continuous flapping. Woodpeckers show particularly deep undulations with longer glides, while warblers have shallower bounces with quick bursts of flapping. Soaring and gliding represent yet another approach to flight, one that minimizes energy expenditure by taking advantage of air currents. Soaring birds like vultures and hawks ride thermal updrafts, columns of warm air that rise from sun-heated ground. A bird enters the thermal and circles within it, allowing the rising air to carry it upward without any flapping required. Once the bird reaches the top of the thermal, it glides forward and downward, losing altitude but covering horizontal distance efficiently until it finds another thermal and repeats the process. In this way, birds can travel enormous distances using very little of their own energy. Dynamic soaring, practiced by seabirds like albatrosses and shearwaters, is even more remarkable. These birds extract energy from wind gradients over the ocean surface. Close to the water, friction slows the wind, but just a few meters up, the wind moves faster. An albatross repeatedly climbs into the faster wind, where the increased airspeed over its wings provides extra lift, then turns and glides back down into the slower air near the surface, using the altitude gained during the climb to cover distance. By continuously exploiting this gradient, albatrosses can fly for thousands of miles without flapping their wings, crossing entire oceans powered only by the wind. The hollow bones of birds play a crucial role in making flight possible. These bones contain air spaces connected to the respiratory system, a feature called pneumatization, which reduces skeletal weight by up to 20% compared to solid bones while maintaining structural strength. The bones are not uniformly thin. They have internal struts and supports, much like the trusses in a bridge, that provide strength where it's needed most. Different species show different degrees of pneumatization depending on their flight requirements. Soaring birds like albatrosses have proportionally longer wing bones with enhanced pneumatization for maximum weight savings, while rapid flyers like falcons feature denser bones that can withstand the high-stress forces generated during high-speed dives and sudden maneuvers. Joint flexibility is another key adaptation. Birds can adjust the angle and shape of their wings during different phases of flight, fine-tuning their aerodynamics in real time. The shoulder joint provides the greatest range of motion, enabling the powerful downstroke and upstroke cycles. The elbow joint allows the wing to fold and extend, crucial for both flapping flight and for tucking the wings against the body when the bird is at rest. The wrist joint, or more accurately, the carpometacarpus, since the hand bones are fused in birds, provides fine-tuned control over feather positioning, allowing birds to adjust the angle of attack and modify lift and drag as needed. Flight is not just about getting from point A to point B. It serves multiple vital functions in birds' lives. It allows birds to forage over wide areas, accessing food sources that would be unreachable otherwise. Swifts catch insects on the wing, spending most of their lives in the air. Ospreys and kingfishers hover above water before plunging down to catch fish. Raptors soar high above the landscape, their keen eyes scanning for prey below. Flight enables birds to migrate thousands of miles between breeding and wintering grounds, following seasonal resources across continents and even between hemispheres. It allows birds to escape predators, to reach safe nesting sites on cliff ledges or in tree canopies, to find mates across distances that would be insurmountable for ground-bound creatures. And there is beauty in it, too, a kind of grace that transcends mere function. Watch a barn swallow as it swoops low over a field, its long wings carrying it in smooth arcs and tight turns, catching insects with acrobatic precision. See a red-tailed hawk riding a thermal, wings spread wide and motionless as it spirals upward in the afternoon sun. Observe a hummingbird hovering at a flower, its body perfectly still in the air, while its wings beat so fast they become a shimmer of motion. Each of these sights reminds us that flight is more than a method of transportation. It is an expression of life's diversity, a testament to evolution's creative power, and a source of wonder that has captivated human imagination since our ancestors first looked up and saw birds against the sky. Flight represents freedom, possibility, the transcendence of earthly limitations. Birds inhabit a dimension we can only visit with the aid of technology, moving through three-dimensional space with an ease and confidence that comes from millions of years of adaptation. When we watch them fly, we are witnessing the culmination of countless incremental improvements, each one tested against the unforgiving demands of survival, each successful innovation preserved and passed down through generations. The result is something close to perfection. Wings that carry their owners across oceans, through storms, over mountains, through every habitat on Earth from equatorial rainforests to Arctic tundra. And in the quiet evening, when the day's activities wind down and birds settle into roosts for the night, there is a sense of completion. Wings fold, feathers smooth into place, and the creatures that spent their day navigating the skies return to branches, to ledges, to sheltered spots where they rest until dawn calls them skyward once more. navigation and migration mysteries. Twice each year, across every continent on Earth, an extraordinary phenomenon unfolds. Birds gather in restless flocks, sensing something in the air, in the changing light, in the very rhythm of the seasons. And then they leave. Some travel hundreds of miles, others thousands, crossing oceans and mountain ranges, deserts and forests, guided by internal maps and external cues in a journey that has captivated human imagination for millennia. Migration is one of the greatest mysteries and marvels of the avian world, a testament to capabilities that still puzzle scientists and inspire wonder in anyone who witnesses it. The champion migrant of all birds is the Arctic tern, a creature that embodies the concept of migration in its most extreme form. These elegant seabirds breed in the Arctic during the northern summer, taking advantage of the continuous daylight and abundant food that characterize the high latitudes during that season. But when autumn approaches and the days begin to shorten, the terns do not simply fly south to a temperate climate. Instead, they embark on one of the longest migrations in the animal kingdom, traveling from the Arctic all the way to Antarctic waters, a journey of roughly 25,000 miles one way. Because the seasons are reversed in the two hemispheres, when the terns arrive in Antarctica, it is summer there, and once again they enjoy long days and plentiful food. When the Antarctic summer ends, they turn around and make the journey back. This means that Arctic terns experience more daylight than any other creature on Earth, living in an almost perpetual summer as they chase the sun between the poles. Over its 30-year lifespan, an Arctic tern may fly more than 1.5 million miles, equivalent to traveling to the moon and back 3 times. The tern's journey is not a direct line from pole to pole. Tracking studies using tiny geolocators attached to the birds have revealed that they follow complex routes, taking advantage of prevailing winds and stopping at productive feeding areas along the way. They travel down the west coast of Africa or through the Atlantic, sometimes following zigzag paths that add thousands of miles to their journey but allow them to exploit favorable conditions. Another remarkable migrant is the bar-tailed godwit, a shorebird that makes one of the longest non-stop flights of any animal. These birds breed in Alaska and eastern Russia during the summer, nesting in the tundra where they feed on insects and small invertebrates. When it's time to migrate, some populations of bar-tailed godwits fly across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean to reach their wintering grounds in New Zealand and eastern Australia. This flight covers approximately 7,000 miles, and the birds make it without stopping. No rest, no food, no water, just continuous flight for 7 to 9 days. Before departing, the godwits undergo remarkable physiological changes. They essentially rebuild their bodies for the journey. Their flight muscles enlarge while their digestive organs shrink, since they won't need to process food during the flight. They accumulate enormous fat reserves, nearly doubling their body weight, providing the fuel they'll need to power their wings for more than a week of continuous flight. As they fly, they burn through these reserves, and by the time they reach New Zealand, they have lost more than half their body weight and their flight muscles have begun to atrophy. But they have crossed an ocean, navigating unerringly to islands they may have never seen before if they are young birds making the journey for the first time. How do birds accomplish these extraordinary feats of navigation? The question has fascinated scientists for more than a century, and while much has been learned, mysteries remain. Birds use multiple navigation systems, integrating information from various sources to find their way across vast distances. The sun is one important reference point. During the day, birds can use the position of the sun to determine direction, compensating for the sun's apparent movement across the sky as the day progresses. This requires an internal clock that tells the bird what time it is, allowing it to calculate where the sun should be at any given moment. Experiments have shown that birds kept in artificial light-dark cycles that differ from natural day-night rhythms make predictable errors in their orientation when released, confirming that they use a time-compensated sun compass. At night, many migrating birds navigate by the stars. The night sky offers numerous reference points, and birds learn the pattern of stars and their rotation around the celestial poles. Young birds raised in planetariums can be taught to orient using an artificial sky, demonstrating that this ability is learned rather than entirely innate. In the Northern Hemisphere, songbirds migrate at night using star patterns, particularly the rotation of constellations around the North Star. On cloudy nights when stars are obscured, birds may become disoriented, and this is one reason why light pollution from cities can be problematic for migrating birds. The artificial lights can interfere with their celestial navigation. But perhaps the most remarkable navigation system birds possess is their ability to sense Earth's magnetic field. The planet itself is a giant magnet, with magnetic field lines running from the magnetic North Pole to the magnetic South Pole, curving through space and passing through the Earth's surface at various angles. Birds can detect these magnetic field lines and use them as a compass, determining which direction is north without needing to see the sun or stars. The mechanism by which birds sense magnetism has been a subject of intense research and some debate. One leading hypothesis involves specialized proteins called cryptochromes, found in the retinas of birds' eyes. These proteins undergo chemical reactions when exposed to light, and these reactions are influenced by magnetic fields. In essence, birds may literally see the Earth's magnetic field as patterns or shades overlaid on their visual perception. This would allow them to orient themselves magnetically while simultaneously processing visual information about landmarks and terrain. Another possible magnetoreception mechanism involves tiny crystals of magnetite, a naturally magnetic mineral, that have been found in the beaks and heads of some bird species. These crystals could act like miniature compass needles, detecting the direction and intensity of magnetic fields and sending this information to the brain through associated nerve fibers. It's possible that birds use both mechanisms, with the eye-based system providing compass information about direction and the magnetite-based system providing information about magnetic intensity, which varies predictably across the Earth's surface and could serve as a component of a mental map. Beyond compass orientation, birds also seem to possess a true map sense, an ability to determine their position relative to a goal even when displaced to unfamiliar territory. If you capture a migrating bird and release it hundreds of miles away from its normal route, it can often correct for the displacement and head toward its intended destination. This implies that birds have some way of knowing where they are on Earth, not just which direction to fly. One hypothesis is that birds create a mental map using gradients of Earth's magnetic field. Magnetic intensity and inclination both vary across the Earth's surface in predictable ways, creating a grid of magnetic coordinates. By sensing these parameters, a bird might determine its location much as we use latitude and longitude. Some research supports this idea, showing that birds can use magnetic information to determine whether they are north or south of their goal and adjust their flight direction accordingly. Other cues also play important roles. Experienced birds learn visual landmarks along their migration routes. Mountain ranges, coastlines, rivers, and other prominent features. They may use olfactory cues, particularly over the ocean where visual landmarks are absent. Some seabirds have an excellent sense of smell and can detect odor plumes from distant land masses or productive ocean areas. Even sound may provide navigational information. Low-frequency sounds such as ocean waves crashing on distant shores can travel long distances and might help birds locate coastal areas. Many birds also learn migration routes from their parents or other experienced individuals in their social group, creating cultural transmission of knowledge. Young cranes, geese, and swans typically migrate with their parents on their first journey south, learning the route and the stopover sites where food and rest can be found. In subsequent years, they can make the journey independently, following the route they learned. Some species, however, migrate instinctively without parental guidance. Young cuckoos, for example, are raised by foster parents of different species and never meet their biological parents. Yet they successfully migrate to Africa from Europe on their own, guided by genetic information that tells them when to leave, which direction to fly, and when to stop. The timing of migration is controlled by a complex interplay of internal and external factors. Changes in day length trigger hormonal shifts that stimulate restlessness and the urge to migrate. A state called Zugunruhe, a German word that translates roughly to migratory restlessness. Birds experiencing Zugunruhe become active at night if they are nocturnal migrants, hopping toward the direction they need to fly, their internal programming urging them to begin the journey. Environmental conditions also matter. Birds wait for favorable weather, particularly tailwinds that will assist their flight and conserve energy. They fatten up before migration, building the fuel reserves they'll need for the journey. The physiological changes that birds undergo in preparation for migration are remarkable. Many birds nearly double their fat content in the weeks before departure, creating energy stores that will power their flight muscles. In some species, the size of digestive organs fluctuates seasonally. During migration, when birds need to be as light as possible and may not eat for extended periods, organs like the intestines and liver shrink. When the birds arrive at their destination and begin feeding again, these organs regrow. Even the size of the brain changes in some species, with certain brain regions involved in navigation and spatial memory enlarging during migration season and then shrinking afterward. Migration is not without risks. Birds face predators, storms, exhaustion, and starvation. Many die during the journey, particularly young birds on their first migration. Human activities have added new hazards. Tall buildings and glass windows kill hundreds of millions of migrating birds each year in North America alone. As birds collide with structures, especially during nocturnal migration when they're drawn to lights. Communication towers with their steady burning lights can disorient and attract birds, leading to collisions. Habitat loss has eliminated many stopover sites where migrants traditionally rested and refueled, forcing birds to make longer flights without breaks and increasing mortality. Yet despite these challenges, migration continues, generation after generation. The urge is so deeply ingrained, so essential to the survival strategies of these species, that birds endure incredible hardships to complete their journeys. And there is something profoundly moving about this, something that speaks to persistence and determination, to the power of instinct and adaptation. Imagine standing in a field on an autumn evening as the light fades. Overhead, you might hear the calls of migrating birds, geese honking in formation, the soft chips of songbirds passing invisibly in the darkness. They're on journeys that span continents, guided by ancient knowledge encoded in their genes and learned from their elders, navigating by stars and magnetic fields and landmarks both remembered and instinctive. And they will arrive, most of them, at destinations they may have never seen, finding their way across thousands of miles to places where survival is possible, where they can feed and rest before turning around and making the return journey. In these migrations, we see the intimate connection between birds and the planet itself. They respond to the tilt of the Earth as it orbits the sun, to the changing seasons that bring abundance and scarcity. They navigate using the planet's magnetic field, using the patterns of stars that appear to will overhead each night as Earth turns. Birds are, in a sense, creatures of the entire Earth, not limited to a single place but moving fluidly across the world, connecting ecosystems, transferring energy and nutrients from one region to another. When you see a swallow in summer or a warbler in spring, remember that this bird has likely traveled from another continent to be here. It has crossed landscapes you've never seen, faced challenges you can barely imagine, all to arrive in this place at this time. And when autumn comes and the bird disappears, it hasn't vanished. It has simply continued its journey, following routes established over millennia, responding to the same ancient rhythms that have guided its ancestors since the dawn of the species. And in this continuity, in this annual return, there is something deeply reassuring. The world changes, yes, but some patterns persist. Birds still migrate with the seasons, still find their way across vast distances, still arrive when and where they should. There is order in this, a kind of reliability that feels precious in an uncertain world. When spring comes and the migrants return, it's as though the world is being set right again, pieces falling back into place, the great wheel of the seasons turning as it should, nesting and parenting behaviors. If migration represents the restless, wandering side of avian life, nesting represents its opposite, the profound commitment to place, to home, to the next generation. When birds build nests and raise young, they engage in behaviors that are among the most complex and fascinating in the animal kingdom. The diversity of nesting strategies reflects the incredible variety of environments birds inhabit and the challenges they face. Consider first the nest itself. To humans, a bird's nest might seem like a simple cup of twigs and grass placed in a tree, but this barely scratches the surface of nest architecture. Nests come in countless forms, from the bare scrapes on rocky ground where plovers lay their eggs, to the elaborate woven structures of weaver birds, to the massive stick platforms of eagles that can weigh hundreds of pounds and be used for decades. The sociable weaver of southern Africa constructs perhaps the most impressive communal nest of any bird. These sparrow-sized birds work together to build enormous structures in acacia trees, apartment complexes for birds that can house hundreds of individuals. The nest looks like a giant haystack wedged into the tree's branches, with a thatched roof that sheds rain. The underside is dotted with entrance holes, each leading to a separate chamber where a pair of weavers raises its young. The nest structure persists for years, even decades, with new generations adding to and repairing it. The largest nests can measure more than 20 feet wide and 6 feet tall, and they weigh several tons, sometimes becoming so heavy that they break the tree branches supporting them. These communal nests provide significant advantages. The mass of dry grass acts as insulation, keeping the interior chambers relatively stable in temperature despite the extreme heat of the day and cold of the night in their semi-arid habitat. Snakes and other predators have difficulty accessing the chambers, and there are many eyes to watch for danger. The weavers even allow other species to nest within their structure. Falcons sometimes nest on top, providing additional protection since the falcons defend the area from predators that might also threaten the weavers. At the opposite extreme are birds that build no nest at all. Emperor penguins breed during the Antarctic winter, when temperatures plunge to -50 degrees Fahrenheit and winds reach hurricane force. Female penguins lay a single egg, then immediately transfer it to their mates and depart on a 2-month feeding journey to the ocean. The male penguin balances the egg on his feet, covering it with a warm fold of abdominal skin called a brood pouch. For the next 64 days, he stands in the colony, enduring the most brutal conditions on Earth, protecting his egg from cold that would freeze it solid in minutes if exposed. The males huddle together in dense groups, slowly rotating positions, so that each bird spends time in the relatively sheltered center of the huddle and time on the exposed edges. By the time the female returns and the chick hatches, the male has lost nearly half his body weight and hasn't eaten in more than 100 days. Hummingbird nests, by contrast, are tiny masterpieces of delicate construction. A typical hummingbird nest is about the size of a walnut shell, built from plant down, spider silk, and lichen. The spider silk is particularly important. It's stretchy, allowing the nest to expand as the chicks grow, and it's strong, holding the structure together. The lichens and other materials provide camouflage, making the nest blend seamlessly with the branch it rests upon. The female hummingbird builds the nest alone, a process that typically takes a week of intense labor. She hovers near her chosen site, pressing materials into place with her tiny feet and body, shaping the cup with thousands of precise movements. The result is a structure so small and well camouflaged that you could look directly at it without recognizing it as a nest. Burrowing owls, as their name suggests, nest underground. They use burrows excavated by prairie dogs, ground squirrels, or other mammals, sometimes widening and modifying existing burrows to suit their needs. The underground nest provides protection from predators and from the temperature extremes common in the grassland habitats where these owls live. The nest chamber is often lined with dried dung from cattle or horses, and while this might seem unsanitary, there's method to it. The dung attracts dung beetles and other insects, providing a readily available food source right at the nest entrance. Parent owls and their owlets can snatch insects without leaving the relative safety of the burrow. Edible nest swiftlets of Southeast Asia build nests entirely from their own saliva. These small birds secrete strands of sticky saliva that harden when exposed to air, and they layer these strands to create cup-shaped nests attached to cave walls. The nests take about 35 days to build, and the birds expend considerable energy producing the saliva needed. In some cultures, These nests are harvested and used to make birds' nest soup, a delicacy that has led to overharvesting and population declines in some areas. From the bird's perspective, the saliva nest provides a secure anchor point in caves where horizontal surfaces for traditional nest building might not exist. Mallee fowl of Australia are mound builders, and their nesting behavior is among the most unusual of any bird. The male excavates a large pit, sometimes up to 15 feet across and 3 feet deep, and fills it with vegetation. He then covers this vegetation with sand, creating a mound. As the vegetation decomposes, it generates heat through microbial activity. The female lays eggs in chambers within the mound, and the male regulates the temperature by adding or removing sand, working continuously throughout the breeding season to maintain the eggs at the optimal temperature of about 91 degrees Fahrenheit. This requires remarkable precision and constant attention. The male tests the temperature by probing the mound with his beak and adjusting the insulation accordingly. The eggs incubate for about 7 weeks, and when the chicks hatch, they must dig their way out of the mound, a process that can take several hours. Once they emerge, they are immediately independent, receiving no parental care. They can fly within 24 hours of hatching, an unusually precocial development that reflects their need for early self-sufficiency. Most birds, however, fall somewhere between these extremes. Many songbirds build cup-shaped nests in trees or shrubs, using grasses, twigs, rootlets, and other plant materials, often lined with softer materials like feathers or moss. The female typically does most or all of the construction, though in some species, the male helps gather materials. Robins build sturdy mud-reinforced nests, applying wet mud to create a solid cup, then lining it with fine grasses. The mud dries and hardens, providing structural integrity, and the nest can last through multiple breeding seasons. Though robins typically build a new nest for each clutch, woodpeckers excavate cavities in dead or dying trees, chiseling out chambers with their powerful beaks. This is hard work, requiring many days of effort, but it results in a nest that is well protected from predators and weather. The cavity's small entrance hole prevents larger animals from accessing the nest, and the wood walls provide insulation. Once a woodpecker abandons a cavity, it becomes valuable real estate for other cavity nesting species that cannot excavate their own holes. Chickadees, nuthatches, bluebirds, and many other species rely on old woodpecker cavities for nesting, creating a cascade of ecological benefits from the woodpecker's initial excavation. The eggs themselves are marvels of design. Most bird eggs are oval or slightly asymmetrical, a shape that is strong and resists breaking under the weight of the incubating parent. The shell is porous, allowing oxygen to enter and carbon dioxide to escape so the developing embryo can breathe, but the pores are small enough to prevent excessive water loss. The shell's color and patterning vary tremendously among species. Ground nesting birds often lay camouflaged eggs, mottled browns and grays that blend with pebbles and soil. Birds that nest in cavities frequently lay white eggs, since camouflage is unnecessary in the dark interior of a tree hollow, and the white color helps parents locate eggs in the dim light. Blue and green eggs contain biliverdin, a pigment related to bile, and the intensity of color can sometimes signal the female's condition to the male, with brighter blue eggs indicating a healthier, better provisioned female. Clutch size, the number of eggs laid, varies with species, habitat, and conditions. Large birds that produce well-developed young typically lay small clutches. Eagles often lay just 2 eggs, and if both chicks survive and food is scarce, the older, stronger chick may kill its younger sibling, ensuring at least one offspring survives. Small songbirds in temperate regions typically lay 4 to 6 eggs. Birds in the tropics, where predation pressure is higher but food is available year-round, often lay smaller clutches, investing more heavily in each offspring to improve its chances of survival. Incubation strategies also vary. In most species, the female alone incubates the eggs, developing a bare patch of skin on her belly called a brood patch where blood vessels come close to the surface, allowing her to transfer body heat directly to the eggs. She must sit almost continuously, leaving only briefly to feed, and the male often brings her food. In other species, both parents share incubation duties. Pigeons and doves typically split incubation equally, with the female sitting through the night and most of the day, while the male takes a shift in the afternoon. In a few species, only the male incubates. Male phalaropes, small shorebirds with reversed sex roles, incubate the eggs alone while the larger, more brightly colored females defend territories and compete for mates. When the chicks hatch, they fall into 2 broad categories: altricial and precocial. Altricial chicks, typical of songbirds, woodpeckers, parrots, and many others, hatch blind, naked, and helpless. They require constant parental care, being brooded for warmth and fed almost continuously. Songbird parents may make dozens of feeding trips per hour, bringing insects to satisfy the enormous appetites of rapidly growing chicks. The parents remove fecal sacs, small packages of waste produced by the chicks, and carry them away from the nest to avoid attracting predators with the scent or sight of waste. Precocial chicks, by contrast, hatch covered in down with their eyes open and are mobile within hours or days. Ducks, geese, shorebirds, and game birds are precocial. These chicks can walk, swim, and find their own food soon after hatching, though they still depend on parents for warmth, protection, and guidance. A mother duck leads her ducklings to water shortly after they hatch, and they immediately begin swimming and diving for food, but they return to her frequently to warm up under her wings. Parental care varies enormously across species. Some birds invest heavily, feeding and protecting their young for weeks or even months after fledging. Young crows may stay with their parents for a year or more, helping raise the next year's chicks, a behavior called cooperative breeding. Acorn woodpeckers live in family groups where offspring from previous years help their parents raise new siblings, a system that improves the survival rate of chicks and may provide young birds with valuable experience before they attempt to breed themselves. At the other extreme, brood parasites lay their eggs in other birds' nests and provide no parental care at all. The common cuckoo of Europe is famous for this strategy. Female cuckoos watch potential host birds building nests, wait until the hosts have laid eggs, then sneak in and deposit a single cuckoo egg, often removing one of the host's eggs to maintain the correct count. The cuckoo egg typically hatches earlier than the host eggs, and the cuckoo chick, still blind and naked, instinctively pushes the other eggs or chicks out of the nest, ensuring it receives all the food the foster parents provide. The foster parents, often much smaller than the young cuckoo, work exhaustively to feed the rapidly growing imposter, apparently unable to recognize that it doesn't resemble their own species. From the human perspective, bird parenting can seem both wonderfully devoted and, in some cases, surprisingly harsh. Siblicide, where stronger chicks kill weaker siblings, occurs in several groups of birds including eagles, egrets, and owls. This seems cruel, but it's an evolutionary strategy that ensures at least one chick survives in years when food is scarce. By laying 2 eggs, parents hedge their bets. If food is abundant, both chicks can survive, but if not, the older, stronger chick eliminates the competition. Yet there are countless examples of extraordinary parental devotion. Arctic terns, which undertake the longest migration of any bird, arrive at their breeding grounds exhausted but immediately begin the demanding work of nesting and chick rearing. Both parents share all duties equally, taking turns incubating the eggs and then feeding the chicks tiny fish caught from the icy waters. If a predator approaches, both parents dive bomb it aggressively, despite the danger, doing everything possible to protect their young. Killdeer, a common shorebird, uses a fascinating defensive strategy when predators approach their ground nests. The parent bird runs away from the nest, dragging one wing as though injured, calling loudly and conspicuously. This broken wing display draws the predator's attention away from the vulnerable eggs or chicks and toward the apparently easy meal of an injured adult. Once the predator has followed far enough from the nest, the killdeer suddenly recovers, flying away and leaving the confused predator without a meal and far from the nest it was originally approaching. In the quiet routine of nest building, egg-laying, incubation, and chick rearing, birds demonstrate skills and behaviors that have been refined over millions of years. Each species has evolved strategies suited to its particular environment and ecological niche. Some invest heavily in a few offspring, others spread their reproductive effort across many. Some depend entirely on one parent's effort, others share equally, and some enlist the help of extended family. But all share the fundamental drive to reproduce, to pass their genes forward, to ensure that the next generation takes flight. And there is something peaceful in watching this unfold. A robin sitting motionless on her nest, warming eggs with her body. A hummingbird making her 50th trip of the hour, bringing a tiny insect to chicks barely visible in their thimble-sized nest. A pair of swans gliding across a pond, followed by a line of fluffy cygnets. These moments remind us of life's continuity, of the cycles that turn regardless of human concerns, of the patient work that nature does season after season, generation after generation, ensuring that life persists and flourishes. Intelligence and problem-solving, the thinking bird. For centuries, the phrase bird brain served as an insult, a dismissive label suggesting limited intelligence and simple thought. The assumption was straightforward. Birds possess small brains, therefore they must possess small minds. But science has a way of humbling our assumptions, and few revelations have been more striking than the discovery that some birds rival the cognitive abilities of great apes and even young human children. At the forefront of this revolution in our understanding stand the corvids. This family includes crows, ravens, magpies, and jays. Approximately 40 species strong, corvids inhabit nearly every corner of the globe, and they have evolved cognitive abilities that challenge everything we thought we knew about intelligence in the animal kingdom. Consider the New Caledonian crow, a species that inhabits the remote islands of New Caledonia in the South Pacific. These birds do not simply use tools, they manufacture them. They select specific types of plant material, modify them with precision, and create implements designed for particular tasks. They fashion hooks from twigs to extract insects from crevices. They understand cause and effect relationships that would perplex many creatures with far larger brains. In laboratory settings, these crows have solved multi-step puzzles that require planning several moves ahead, demonstrating what researchers call mental trial and error. They can visualize solutions before attempting them, a cognitive feat once thought exclusive to humans and great apes. But here is where the story becomes even more remarkable. Scientists discovered that rooks, another corvid species that does not use tools in the wild, possess the same capacity for tool use when presented with the opportunity. In controlled experiments, hand-raised rooks spontaneously modified wire to create hooks, used sequences of tools to obtain rewards, and demonstrated what researchers term insight. They did not learn through trial and error. They appeared to suddenly understand the solution to novel problems. This suggests that tool use in corvids is not a specialized adaptation, but rather a byproduct of a more general cognitive toolkit, a flexible intelligence that can be applied to whatever challenges their environment presents. The research on corvid cognition reveals abilities that parallel those of primates. Crows and ravens demonstrate episodic-like memory, the ability to remember not just what happened, but where and when it happened. This capacity, once considered uniquely human or perhaps shared only with other primates, allows corvids to plan for future needs. They cache food, hiding thousands of items across vast territories, and they remember not only where they hid each morsel but also what they hid and how long ago. More remarkably, they adjust their caching behavior based on social context. If another bird watches them hide food, they will return later when alone and move those items to new, secret locations. They understand that others have minds, knowledge, and intentions, a cognitive ability called theory of mind. Working memory in corvids rivals that of primates. Their brains contain a structure called the caudolateral nidopallium, which functions similarly to the mammalian prefrontal cortex despite having evolved independently. Through convergent evolution, birds and mammals arrived at similar solutions to the problem of complex cognition, using entirely different neural architecture. Where mammals built a layered cerebral cortex, birds developed densely packed neuronal clusters. The result: similar capabilities achieved through different means, a beautiful example of evolution's creativity. Studies have shown that corvids can perform relational matching tasks, recognizing sameness and differentness even with novel stimuli they have never encountered before. They can count, categorize objects by color and shape, and understand abstract concepts. House crows in urban India have adapted to city life with remarkable cognitive flexibility, learning to use human infrastructure for their own purposes, remembering human faces, and adjusting their foraging strategies based on human behavior patterns. The intelligence of corvids extends into the social realm. Ravens form complex social relationships, recognize individual conspecifics, and engage in cooperative problem-solving. They play, engaging in aerial acrobatics that serve no immediate survival purpose, but may help develop motor skills and social bonds. Young ravens have been observed sliding down snow-covered slopes repeatedly, behavior that looks remarkably like pure enjoyment. But corvids are not the only birds whose intelligence has forced us to reconsider avian cognition. African gray parrots have demonstrated cognitive abilities that rival and sometimes exceed those of great apes, and they have done so in ways that allowed direct communication with human researchers. The story of Alex, the African gray parrot, stands as one of the most compelling narratives in the study of animal cognition. In June 1977, researcher Irene Pepperberg purchased a 1-year-old African gray parrot from a pet shop. She had one goal: to determine whether birds conventionally regarded as mindless mimics could learn to use human language referentially, to actually understand and communicate concepts rather than merely repeat sounds. What followed was a 30-year collaboration that revolutionized our understanding of avian intelligence. Using a technique called the model-rival method, Pepperberg taught Alex not just to vocalize English words, but to use them with understanding. 2 trainers would demonstrate the desired behavior, with one acting as a model and rival for the parrot's attention. The roles would switch, showing Alex that communication was interactive, not one-sided. When Alex correctly identified an object, he received that object as a reward, reinforcing the connection between word and meaning. The results astonished the scientific community. Alex learned to identify more than 50 different objects, 7 colors, 5 shapes, and quantities up to 6. He understood the concepts of bigger and smaller, same and different. He could answer questions about objects, responding correctly when asked about their color, shape, or material, even when the same object could be described in multiple ways. This was not rote memorization. Alex demonstrated true comprehension. Consider this. When Alex looked in a mirror and asked, "What color?" he was asking about himself. After being told gray 6 times, he learned the word. He became the first non-human animal documented to ask an existential question. Apes trained in sign language, despite their cognitive sophistication, have never asked a single question. Yet this bird, with a brain the size of a walnut, demonstrated curiosity about his own existence. Alex exhibited the emotional equivalent of a 2-year-old human and the intellectual equivalent of a 5-year-old. He understood the concept of zero, a mathematical abstraction that human children typically grasp around age 4. When presented with objects and asked, "How many?" when none were present, Alex would answer, "None," demonstrating comprehension of absence and quantity simultaneously. Perhaps most remarkably, Alex demonstrated linguistic creativity. When first encountering an apple, he called it a banary, apparently combining banana and cherry, 2 fruits he knew. He created new words spontaneously, suggesting he understood language as a combinatorial system where elements could be mixed to create new meanings. He practiced words when alone, self-correcting his pronunciation. In later years, he assisted in training other parrots, taking on the role of model and rival, even correcting their mistakes. Alex's final words, spoken the night before his unexpected death in September 2007 at age 31, were, "You be good. I love you. See you tomorrow." These were the words he said every evening when Pepperberg left the laboratory. Whether these words represented the same emotional content they would in human speech remains unknowable, but they represent a poignant endpoint to a relationship that demonstrated birds could engage with human concepts in ways previously unimagined. Research with other African gray parrots has confirmed and extended these findings. A parrot named Griffin has demonstrated inductive reasoning, drawing conclusions from repeated experiences and understanding probabilities. These birds can solve the same cognitive tasks that demonstrate intelligence in primates, using completely different brain structures evolved along an independent evolutionary pathway that diverged from mammals over 300 million years ago. The convergent evolution of intelligence in corvids and parrots, achieved through different neural architectures, suggests that complex cognition is not tied to any particular brain structure but emerges from the organization and connectivity of neural networks. Birds, despite lacking a neocortex, can achieve cognitive feats that match or exceed many mammals. This revelation has profound implications for our understanding of intelligence itself, suggesting it can evolve multiple times through multiple routes when environmental pressures favor it. What drives such intelligence? Researchers propose that complex social structures, long lifespans, and unpredictable food sources create selective pressure for cognitive sophistication. African gray parrots in the wild live in large flocks, communicate through complex vocalizations, and can travel 35 miles per day searching for food. Corvids face similar challenges. They live in complex social groups, maintain long-term pair bonds, and exploit diverse and changing food sources. In both cases, success requires memory, planning, social intelligence, and behavioral flexibility. Evolution rewarded these capacities with survival, and over millions of years, remarkable minds emerged. The study of bird intelligence reminds us that consciousness, thought, and understanding are not human monopolies. They are properties that can emerge wherever nervous systems become sufficiently complex and organized, regardless of whether those systems are built from mammalian cortex or avian nidopallium. As you drift toward sleep tonight, consider this. The birds outside your window possess inner lives richer than generations of humans ever imagined. Extraordinary adaptations, mastering the extremes. Birds inhabit every environment Earth offers, from steaming equatorial rainforests to frozen polar wastes, from arid deserts to open oceans. This global distribution is possible because birds have evolved some of the most remarkable physiological and behavioral adaptations in the animal kingdom. Let us journey to the extremes, to the places where survival demands innovation, and discover how birds have mastered conditions that would kill most other creatures within minutes. Antarctica. The name alone evokes images of desolation. Endless ice, howling winds, temperatures that plunge to -80 degrees Fahrenheit. It is Earth's most inhospitable continent, a place where exposure means death, where winter brings months of darkness, where the ocean freezes solid for miles from shore. Yet here, in this frozen desert, one bird not only survives but thrives. The emperor penguin breeds during the Antarctic winter, a decision that seems to defy logic but represents one of evolution's most extraordinary solutions to environmental challenge. Emperor penguins are the tallest and heaviest of all penguin species. Adults stand nearly 4 feet tall and weigh between 22 and 45 kilograms. Their life cycle is intimately tied to the Antarctic ice. In March and April, as autumn gives way to winter, emperor penguins march inland from the sea, traveling up to 75 miles across ice to reach their breeding colonies. Why move away from the ocean, their only source of food? Timing. By breeding during winter, their chicks will be ready to fledge and enter the water during the Antarctic summer, when food is most abundant. But this strategy demands that adult penguins endure months of the harshest conditions on Earth while protecting their eggs and then their young. The adaptations that make this possible are numerous and interconnected. Emperor penguins possess more genes for beta-carotene protein than any other bird, allowing them to develop an extraordinarily dense plumage of short, stiff feathers. These feathers create a complex, overlapping network of insulation. Multiple feather types work together. Contour feathers that cover the body, downy plumules attached directly to the skin, and after feathers attached to the main feathers. This combination traps air against the skin, creating insulation so effective that emperor penguins can maintain their core body temperature of approximately 100 degrees Fahrenheit, even when ambient temperature drops to -40 degrees. But insulation alone would not suffice. Heat loss occurs most rapidly through extremities, where blood vessels come close to the surface. Emperor penguins have minimized this problem through anatomy. They possess very small bills and flippers, reducing the surface area exposed to cold air. Their legs feature a countercurrent heat exchange system. Arteries carrying warm blood from the heart toward the feet run alongside veins carrying cold blood back from the feet. As these vessels pass close to each other, heat transfers from the arterial blood to the venous blood, warming the returning blood while cooling the outgoing blood. This prevents the feet from dropping below about 34 degrees Fahrenheit, just above freezing, while simultaneously preventing excessive heat loss from the core body. Heat recovery extends even to breathing. Emperor penguins possess special nasal chambers that capture heat from exhaled air and use it to warm incoming breath. Every adaptation serves to minimize energy expenditure in an environment where food is inaccessible for months at a time. The breeding strategy of emperor penguins represents a marvel of parental investment and endurance. Females lay a single egg in May or June, at the onset of winter. After carefully transferring the egg to the male's feet, the female departs for the ocean to feed, a journey of 50 miles or more across ice. She will be gone for approximately 9 weeks. The male remains behind, balancing the egg on his feet, covered by a warm flap of abdominal skin called a brood pouch. He stands in darkness and cold, facing winds that can exceed 125 miles per hour, creating wind chill factors beyond human comprehension. During this incubation period, male emperor penguins fast completely. They do not eat for over 2 months, sometimes approaching 4 months when you include the initial trek inland and the period before laying. They lose approximately 12 kilograms, nearly a third of their body weight, surviving on fat reserves accumulated before the breeding season. How do they survive such conditions? Through cooperation. Emperor penguins have evolved a behavior unique among birds. They huddle. When temperatures drop and winds rise, thousands of penguins press together in tight formation. The huddle can reduce heat loss by up to 50%. The temperature inside a huddle can reach 75 degrees Fahrenheit, a tropical oasis in a frozen wasteland. But huddling presents a challenge. Those on the outside of the formation face the full fury of the Antarctic wind, while those in the center enjoy warmth and protection. The solution is remarkable for its fairness. The huddle moves continuously. Penguins on the windward edge slowly shuffle around the perimeter, eventually reaching the leeward side. They then gradually work their way toward the center, through the warmest zone, and eventually emerge again on the windward edge. Everyone takes turns in the worst positions. Everyone shares the benefit of the best positions. During a 48-hour blizzard, a huddle may shift 200 meters downwind through this constant circulation. The eggs hatch around August, just as females return from their ocean feeding expedition. The females regurgitate food for the newly hatched chicks while males, having lost dangerous amounts of weight, make their own journey to the sea. Parents alternate ocean trips throughout the chick-rearing period, each taking turns feeding while the other fasts. The chicks grow rapidly, huddling together in creches for warmth while both parents forage. By December and January, as summer arrives and the sea ice begins to break up, the chicks have developed waterproof plumage and are ready to enter the ocean. Emperor penguins can dive deeper than any other bird species, reaching depths exceeding 1,800 feet. They hunt fish, squid, and krill in the dark waters beneath the ice, sometimes remaining submerged for over 20 minutes. Their adaptations for diving include solid bones rather than air-filled bones, which eliminates the risk of barotrauma from pressure changes. Their hemoglobin and myoglobin can bind oxygen at extremely low concentrations, allowing them to function with oxygen levels that would cause other animals to lose consciousness. During deep dives, their heart rate drops from 80 beats per minute to just 15 or 20, conserving oxygen for essential organs. Recent observations have documented emperor penguins leaping from ice cliffs 50 feet high, plunging into the sea and surviving impacts that would injure most other creatures. Their small size relative to the impact area, their dense belly feathers, and their powerful breast muscles likely help absorb and distribute the force of landing. The emperor penguin's mastery of Antarctic conditions represents millions of years of evolutionary refinement. They are so specialized for cold that rising temperatures pose an existential threat. Climate change is altering sea ice patterns, the foundation of their breeding cycle. Yet for now, in the frozen heart of winter, emperor penguins stand as testament to life's ability to adapt to the most extreme conditions Earth offers. From the coldest place on Earth, let us travel to some of the hottest and driest. Desert birds face the opposite challenge. Not cold but heat, not ice but aridity. Water is scarce. Temperatures during the day can exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and shade is often non-existent. Yet birds have colonized even these harsh environments through ingenious adaptations. The sandgrouse, found in deserts across Africa and Asia, has evolved a remarkable solution to the challenge of providing water to chicks in arid environments. The male sandgrouse possesses specialized belly feathers with a unique structure that allows them to absorb and hold water like a sponge. Each morning, males fly up to 30 miles to watering holes. They wade into the shallows and soak their belly feathers, absorbing water through capillary action. They then fly back to the nest, where chicks drink from the wet feathers. This behavior allows sandgrouse to nest far from water sources, accessing food-rich areas that other birds cannot exploit. Roadrunners, iconic birds of the American Southwest, survive extreme heat through behavioral and physiological adaptations. They are crepuscular, most active during the cooler hours of dawn and dusk. During the hottest part of the day, they rest in shade, reducing activity to minimize heat production. They can tolerate body temperature fluctuations that would be dangerous for many birds, allowing their temperature to rise during the day and cool at night, reducing the need for evaporative cooling that would waste precious water. When they do need to cool down, they pant rapidly, evaporating water from their mouth and throat. But they also have another trick. They secrete excess salt through nasal glands rather than in urine, conserving water while eliminating waste. The physical demands and variety of bird adaptations extend to their mastery of water and air. Diving birds have evolved modifications that allow them to pursue prey underwater with extraordinary efficiency. Gannets, large seabirds found in oceans around the world, are champion plunge divers. They soar high above the ocean, sometimes reaching heights of 130 feet, scanning for schools of fish below. When they spot prey, they fold their wings and plummet toward the water, achieving speeds approaching 60 miles per hour. At impact, their streamlined body shape allows them to penetrate deep below the surface with minimal deceleration. They can reach depths of 115 feet through a combination of their plunge momentum and wing beats underwater. To survive these high-speed impacts repeatedly, gannets possess multiple protective adaptations. They lack external nostrils. Instead, they breathe through thin slits that close during dives, preventing water from entering their respiratory system. Air sacs beneath their skin act as cushions, absorbing the shock of impact. Their skulls are reinforced to withstand repeated collisions with the water surface. Specialized muscles allow them to adjust their eye lens shape within 1/10 of a second, maintaining sharp focus as they transition from air to water. The remarkable adaptations of birds extend even into the realm of the nocturnal. Owls, nature's silent hunters, have evolved to hunt in near-total darkness with precision that rivals the most sophisticated human technology. Their forward-facing eyes provide binocular vision, allowing depth perception crucial for judging the distance to prey. Their eyes are not spherical but tubular, maximizing the surface area for light-gathering photoreceptors. In some species, the density of rod cells, which function in low light, is so great that owls can see in illumination 100 times dimmer than humans require. But sight is only part of the owl's sensory arsenal. Their hearing is perhaps even more remarkable. Many owl species possess asymmetrical ear openings, with one ear positioned higher on the skull than the other. This asymmetry allows them to pinpoint the location of sounds in three-dimensional space with extraordinary accuracy. Sound arriving from below reaches the lower ear first and slightly louder. Sound from above reaches the higher ear first and louder. By processing these minute differences in timing and volume, owls can locate prey hidden beneath snow or leaves, striking with deadly accuracy at animals they have never seen. Owl flight is eerily silent, allowing them to approach prey without warning. Their wing feathers have evolved specialized structures. The leading edge possesses a comb-like fringe, the trailing edge has soft fringes, and the feather surface is covered in velvety down. These modifications break up turbulent airflow, eliminating the sound of air rushing over wings. Prey animals can hear many bird species approaching from the noise of their wing beats, but owls approach in silence. Birds have conquered every imaginable niche through adaptation. Woodpeckers possess skulls with spongy bone that acts as shock absorbers, allowing them to strike trees at forces that would cause concussion in other animals. Hummingbirds have the fastest metabolism of any vertebrate, their hearts beating over 1,000 times per minute during flight. They can enter torpor at night, lowering their body temperature and metabolic rate to conserve energy. Albatrosses have the longest wingspan of any living bird, up to 11 feet, allowing them to glide for hours without flapping, covering thousands of miles on ocean winds. Peregrine falcons are the fastest animals on Earth, reaching speeds over 240 miles per hour during their hunting stoops, equipped with specialized nostrils that prevent air pressure from damaging their lungs at such velocities. Each adaptation represents countless generations of natural selection, each incremental improvement conferring survival advantage, each innovation opening new possibilities. The diversity of bird adaptations reminds us that evolution is endlessly creative, that life will find ways to inhabit even the most extreme environments our planet offers. Birds and ecosystems, the invisible architects. Birds are more than individual marvels. They are integral components of the ecosystems they inhabit, providing services that shape landscapes, sustain forests, and support countless other species, including humans. The roles birds play are often invisible, happening in the background of our awareness. Yet their importance cannot be overstated. Pollination. When we think of pollinators, we typically imagine bees, butterflies, perhaps moths. But in many ecosystems, birds are the primary pollinators, and their contribution to plant reproduction has shaped the evolution of entire florasts. Hummingbirds, found only in the Americas, are among the most important avian pollinators. Over 300 plant species in North America alone depend primarily on hummingbirds for pollination. These relationships are ancient, with plants and birds co-evolving over millions of years. Hummingbird-pollinated flowers tend to share certain characteristics. They are often red or orange, colors that attract hummingbirds but are less visible to insects. They produce copious dilute nectar, providing the energy hummingbirds need to sustain their metabolism. They lack the strong scents that attract insects, because hummingbirds have a poor sense of smell and rely on vision. Their flowers are often tubular, matching the length and curvature of hummingbird bills, and they position their stamens and pistils to contact the bird's head or throat as it feeds, ensuring pollen transfer. The relationship between hummingbirds and flowers is mutualistic. The plants provide high-energy food. The birds provide pollination services that allow plants to reproduce across distances, maintaining genetic diversity. Some relationships are highly specialized. Certain sword-billed hummingbirds in the Andes have bills longer than their bodies, evolved to access nectar from specific flower species with extremely long corollas. Neither plant nor bird could exist without the other. Sunbirds in Africa and Asia, honey-eaters in Australia, and Hawaiian honeycreepers all play similar roles in their respective ecosystems, demonstrating that avian pollination has evolved independently multiple times. Studies of pollination networks reveal that the loss of avian pollinators leads to reduced plant reproduction, altered plant community composition, and cascading effects throughout ecosystems. Seed dispersal represents perhaps the most important ecological function performed by birds. In some tropical forests, birds disperse up to 92% of all tree and woody species. The implications are staggering. Forests exist in their current form largely because birds carry seeds from one location to another, facilitating forest regeneration, maintaining plant diversity, and allowing forests to expand into new areas. Birds are particularly important dispersers of large-seeded plants. Seeds are packaged with nutritious fruit to attract dispersers, but large seeds require large dispersers capable of swallowing them whole and transporting them considerable distances before defecation. Large frugivorous birds like hornbills, toucans, curassows, and cassowaries fulfill this role. They consume fruits, digest the flesh, and later deposit the seeds, often far from the parent tree, in a package of fertilizer. This service has immense economic value. Birds disperse the seeds of numerous timber species, including mahoganies, commercially valuable trees worth millions in global trade. They disperse the seeds of plants humans use for medicine, spices, and food. They disperse ornamental plants and species with cultural significance. When large frugivorous birds disappear from forests, either through hunting or habitat loss, the consequences ripple through the entire ecosystem. Research in Brazil's Atlantic rainforest documented how the loss of large seed-dispersing birds affected palm populations. Scientists measured over 9,000 seeds from 22 populations across a large area. In 7 sites where large dispersers had gone extinct, palm seeds were measurably smaller than in 15 sites where these birds remained. Why? Larger birds can swallow and disperse larger seeds. When they vanish, only smaller birds remain, and they can only disperse smaller seeds. Over time, selection favors plants that produce smaller seeds that the remaining dispersers can handle. The plant species is changing in response to the absence of its co-evolved partners. Seed dispersal by birds is crucial for forest regeneration after disturbance. When agricultural land is abandoned, forests can return, but only if seeds arrive. Wind disperses some seeds, but they rarely travel far. Animals, especially birds, are the primary vectors bringing forest seeds to degraded areas. Studies in Costa Rica found that isolated trees or living fences in agricultural landscapes serve as perches for birds. These birds defecate seeds beneath the trees, creating islands of forest regeneration. The density and diversity of seeds raining down directly correlates with bird abundance and the presence of perching structures. Eurasian jays in Europe are specialized dispersers of acorns. A single jay may cache thousands of acorns each autumn, burying them for later retrieval. Inevitably, some caches are forgotten or the bird dies. These forgotten acorns germinate, establishing new oaks. Researchers in Sweden calculated the economic value of this service, estimating that depending on reforestation methods used, each pair of jays provided a substitute cost between $500,000 and $2.5 million annually. Without jays, humans would need to manually plant acorns at considerable expense. Birds provide critical pest control services. Insectivorous birds consume vast quantities of arthropods, reducing pest populations that would otherwise damage crops and forests. Studies in coffee plantations have shown that when birds are excluded using netting, pest insect populations explode and coffee yields decline. Birds provide natural pest control that reduces or eliminates the need for chemical pesticides, saving money and reducing environmental damage. The attempt to eradicate Eurasian tree sparrows from China in the 1950s provides a cautionary tale. Sparrows were declared pests because they ate grain. Mass killings reduced sparrow populations drastically. The result: locust populations exploded without their avian predators, causing crop damage far exceeding anything the sparrows had caused. The campaign was abandoned, but not before demonstrating the hidden value of birds in controlling agricultural pests. Raptors provide rodent control services. Owls and hawks hunt mice, voles, and rats that consume crops and stored grain. Studies have shown that providing perches attractive to raptors concentrates their hunting in areas where rodent control benefits humans. Barn owls in vineyards and orchards can significantly reduce rodent populations, providing economic benefits to farmers while simultaneously reducing the need for rodent poisons that can harm non-target species. Vultures provide scavenging services that prevent disease spread. By consuming carrion rapidly, vultures prevent carcasses from decomposing and potentially contaminating water sources or serving as breeding grounds for disease vectors. When vulture populations in India collapsed due to accidental poisoning from veterinary drugs used in livestock, carcasses accumulated. Feral dog populations exploded as they fed on the carrion, and rabies cases increased. The loss of vultures had cascading public health consequences that cost lives and enormous sums to address. Seabirds transport nutrients from ocean to land through their guano. On islands where seabirds nest, their nitrogen-rich droppings fertilize soils, supporting lush vegetation that would otherwise struggle in nutrient-poor island soils. When invasive predators eliminate seabird colonies, the ecosystem shifts dramatically. Researchers in the Aleutian Islands found that islands with seabird colonies had grassland ecosystems, while islands where foxes had eliminated seabirds had sparse tundra vegetation. The presence or absence of seabirds determined the entire character of the terrestrial ecosystem. Waterbirds transport nutrients between aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems. Birds feeding in wetlands and then flying to terrestrial roosts or nesting sites carry nutrients with them, fertilizing terrestrial areas with aquatic productivity. This nutrient transfer can be substantial, shaping the productivity of both ecosystems. Some birds act as ecosystem engineers, species whose activities create or modify habitats in ways that benefit other organisms. Woodpeckers excavate cavities in trees. These cavities, once abandoned by the woodpecker, provide nesting sites for dozens of other bird species, mammals, and insects that cannot excavate cavities themselves. Pileated woodpeckers in Pacific Northwest forests create large cavities that become homes for owls, flying squirrels, and numerous other species. The presence of woodpeckers structures entire forest communities through their excavation activities. Birds serve as indicators of environmental health. Because they are conspicuous, relatively easy to identify, and well-studied, changes in bird populations can signal environmental problems before they become obvious through other means. Declines in insectivorous bird populations may indicate pesticide contamination or insect population collapses. Changes in seabird breeding success can reflect changing ocean conditions or fish stock declines. Monitoring bird populations provides an early warning system for environmental change. The ecosystem services provided by birds have immense but often unappreciated economic value. Most ecosystem services remain unquantified in monetary terms, but those that have been studied reveal substantial value. Pest control by birds in agriculture saves billions of dollars annually worldwide. Pollination services support crop production worth billions. Seed dispersal maintains forests that provide timber, support biodiversity, regulate water cycles, and sequester carbon. Scavenging prevents disease spread and associated health costs. Nutrient transport fertilizes soils and supports productivity. Cultural services provided by birds also carry economic weight. Bird watching generates billions of dollars in annual economic activity. In the United States alone, over 45 million people watch birds, spending billions on equipment, travel, and related activities. This economic impact supports jobs, generates tax revenue, and provides powerful incentives for conservation. The integration of birds into human cultures runs deep. Birds appear in art, literature, religion, and mythology across all human societies. They serve as symbols, messengers, and inspiration. The value of these cultural connections defies easy quantification but shapes human experience and identity in profound ways. When we consider what birds contribute to ecosystems and to human welfare, the urgency of conservation becomes clear. 23% of bird species are threatened or near threatened with extinction according to the International Union for Conservation of Nature. 44% have declining populations. As bird populations decrease, the ecosystem services they provide diminish. Forests regenerate more slowly or not at all. Pest populations increase. Pollination networks collapse. Nutrient cycles are disrupted. The loss of birds diminishes the functioning of ecosystems on which all life, including human life, depends. Conservation of birds is not merely about preserving beautiful creatures, though that would be reason enough. It is about maintaining the complex web of relationships that sustains ecosystems, provides essential services, and ensures the continued functioning of the natural systems that support human civilization. Every bird lost represents not just the extinction of a unique lineage, but the severing of countless ecological relationships built over millions of years. Wings in the darkness. As our journey through the world of birds draws to a close, take a moment to reflect on what we have discovered together. We have explored minds that rival our own in sophistication despite being built from entirely different components. We have witnessed adaptations that allow survival in conditions that would kill most creatures within minutes. We have seen how birds weave themselves into the fabric of ecosystems, providing services without which forests would not regenerate, crops would fail, and disease would spread unchecked. Birds are descendants of dinosaurs, the only lineage of dinosaurs that survived the mass extinction 66 million years ago that ended the Mesozoic era. They inherited Earth from the giants and diversified into approximately 10,000 species, each uniquely adapted to its niche, each playing its part in the grand symphony of life. They conquered the air in ways no other vertebrate has matched. They spread to every continent, every ocean, every climate zone. They learned to think, to plan, to use tools, to communicate in ways we are only beginning to understand. The next time you hear birdsong at dawn, pause for a moment. Consider the mind behind that sound, shaped by millions of years of evolution, capable of feats of memory and cognition that would impress any human observer. When you see a crow solving a puzzle or a parrot engaging in conversation, Recognize that you are witnessing intelligence as real and valid as your own, simply expressed through a different medium. When you observe birds at a feeder or flying overhead, remember that you are seeing the descendants of creatures that witnessed the rise and fall of countless species, that survived extinction events and ice ages, that adapted and persisted and thrived. Every bird carries within it the accumulated wisdom of generations stretching back through deep time, adaptations fine-tuned by natural selection, behaviors passed down through learning and culture. The study of birds enriches human understanding in ways that extend far beyond ornithology. They teach us about evolution, about adaptation, about intelligence and consciousness. They remind us that minds can emerge from different neural architectures, that there are many ways to be intelligent, many ways to perceive and interact with the world. They demonstrate the power of convergent evolution, showing how similar solutions can arise independently when facing similar challenges. Birds connect us to the natural world in immediate, accessible ways. Unlike many wild animals that flee from human presence or exist only in remote wilderness, birds live among us. They visit our gardens, nest in our parks, fly overhead as we go about our daily lives. They provide a window into the natural world that remains open even in cities, even in landscapes heavily modified by human activity. This accessibility makes them powerful ambassadors for nature, awakening wonder and fostering connection to the living world. In our modern age, when screens dominate our attention and technology mediates much of our experience, birds offer something increasingly rare: direct, unmediated contact with wild creatures. No app is required to appreciate a cardinal's song. No subscription service grants access to the aerial ballet of swallows at dusk. These experiences are free, available to anyone who takes a moment to look and listen. They ground us in the present moment, in the reality of the living world that exists beyond human concerns and constructions. The conservation challenges facing birds are significant, but not insurmountable. Habitat protection, reducing pesticide use, keeping cats indoors, making windows visible to birds, supporting organizations working on conservation. All these actions contribute to bird survival. Individual actions matter, but systemic change matters more. Supporting policies that protect habitat, regulate pollution, and address climate change will determine the fate of many species. Yet even as we acknowledge threats and work toward solutions, there is room for hope. Bird populations can recover when we create the conditions for their success. Bald eagles, once on the brink of extinction in North America due to DDT contamination, now thrive across much of their range following the ban of that pesticide and dedicated conservation efforts. Peregrine falcons, similarly affected, have returned to cities where they hunt pigeons among skyscrapers. Whooping cranes, reduced to just 15 individuals in the 1940s, now number over 800 thanks to intensive conservation. Conservation works when we commit to it, when we recognize value beyond immediate human utility, when we choose to share the planet with other forms of life. As you settle into sleep tonight, let your mind wander back over what we have explored. Picture the emperor penguin huddling against Antarctic winds, holding an egg on its feet through months of darkness and cold, sustained by fat reserves and the promise of spring. Imagine the New Caledonian crow fashioning a hook from a twig, solving in moments a puzzle that would stump most creatures. Envision the African gray parrot asking, "What color?" the first time it sees itself in a mirror, expressing curiosity about its own existence. See the gannet folding its wings and plummeting from the sky, striking the water at 60 miles per hour, pursuing fish into the depths. These are not stories, not fantasies, but realities happening right now in the world outside your window. Birds are living these extraordinary lives, utilizing these remarkable adaptations, playing these essential ecological roles. They were doing so before humans emerged as a species. They do so now, and they will continue into the future if we make space for them. The world of birds is vast, far more extensive than we could explore in a single evening. Every species has its story, its unique adaptations, its particular way of navigating the challenges of existence. Some birds migrate thousands of miles between continents, navigating by stars and magnetic fields we cannot perceive. Others spend their entire lives in a few acres of forest, knowing every branch and vine. Some dive to depths that would crush human lungs. Others soar so high they require specialized hemoglobin to extract oxygen from thin air. Some live for decades, forming lifelong pair bonds and accumulating knowledge they pass to their young. Others live fast and die young, packing intense reproduction into brief lives. Each species represents a unique solution to the puzzle of survival, a thread in the complex web of life. When a species goes extinct, we lose not just a type of bird but a unique accumulation of evolutionary history, a set of adaptations refined over millions of years, a voice in the natural chorus, a set of relationships with other species that can never be replicated. The peaceful facts about birds are these: they are intelligent, far more than we ever imagined. They are adapted to their environments in ways that inspire awe. They are essential components of ecosystems, providing services we cannot replicate and often do not fully understand. They connect us to nature. They enrich our lives through their beauty, their songs, their behaviors. They remind us that we share this planet with creatures whose existence has value independent of human needs and desires. In recognizing this value, in taking time to observe and appreciate birds, we become more connected to the larger living world. We step outside the narrow circle of human concerns and acknowledge our place in a community of life that spans the planet, that extends back through deep time, that will continue into the future. This connection, this recognition of kinship with other living things, may be one of the most important insights our species can achieve. So tomorrow morning, when the dawn chorus begins, perhaps you will listen with new appreciation. You will recognize it not as background noise, but as a concert performed by creatures of extraordinary capability, each singer an individual with its own experiences and knowledge, each song serving purposes both immediate and ancient. You will remember that those voices are the voices of dinosaurs, of survivors, of innovators who conquered the skies and spread across the world. You will know that the small bird at your feeder possesses navigation abilities that shame our technology, that can remember thousands of locations, that can survive conditions that would kill you, that fills crucial roles in ecosystems we are only beginning to understand. You will see not just a bird, but a marvel of evolution, a participant in the grand dance of life, a fellow traveler on this spinning planet hurtling through space. And in that recognition, in that moment of connection, you will touch something essential, something that technology cannot provide and urban life often obscures. The knowledge that we are not alone, that we are part of something larger than ourselves, that the world is full of wonders if we only take time to notice them. Rest now. Let the knowledge of bird intelligence and adaptation drift with you into sleep. Let the image of wings catching the wind, of minds solving problems, of ecosystems interconnected through countless relationships, accompany you into dreams. Tomorrow brings another day, another opportunity to observe, to appreciate, to protect these remarkable creatures with whom we share our world. Before you drift off completely, consider doing one thing for me, for yourself, for the birds. If you have enjoyed this journey into their world, if you have found wonder in their intelligence and adaptation, if you have appreciated learning about their essential ecological roles, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows me to continue creating these deep dives into science and nature, these explorations of the remarkable world around us. It tells me that these stories matter, that there is hunger for understanding, that the ancient human impulse to learn and wonder remains alive and well. Share this with someone you think might appreciate it. Talk about what you have learned. Look at birds differently. Support their conservation. Every action, no matter how small, contributes to a future where these winged wonders continue to grace our skies, to pollinate our plants, to disperse our forests, to remind us that the world contains mysteries and marvels beyond our making. Sleep well, dream of wings,